Hey everyone, Louis here from Xano. Welcome to the first installment of the two-part series on building a no-code WhatsApp clone. In this episode, we're breaking down the essential database schema and API logics of any live chat application. I'll guide you through building and testing, and I'll show you how backend changes directly impact the front-end interface. We leverage a WebSocket, HTTP requests, and nested real-time channels to create a robust live chat experience. And what's even better is that the link to all the resources that I use here in this video are available in the description. Both tutorials are packed with insights that help you create a live chat functionality from scratch. But keep in mind that further adjustments will be required to align with the particular needs of your application. To start, we will walk you through the database schema. I'll start with the user table, which is the table that I use to authenticate, meaning that I will create tokens for the users in this table. The first column that I have is a unique email field. I also have name and username as texts. I have profile picture, which is image metadata, password, that is a hash password field. And I also have a column here that is UUID that I call WS, stands for WebSocket_ID. This column is very important because every time the user logs into the application, he or she will also join this specific real-time channel, which is unique for each user. So every time the user is logged in and receives a message in this channel, the data on their screen will be instantly refreshed. I'll explain a little better and show you later in the video. And now that we have created user, we need to create a channel for communication. And the fields that I have here, first created at, which is a timestamp field. I have one called type that is an enum with only two allowable values, direct and group. Direct includes conversations with two people, where group includes conversations with three or more. And we also have three other fields, name, description, and group image, that are only relevant for group channels. And ultimately, we have an array or a list of table references to the users table. So that includes all the users that are participants in each of those channels. And we also have another table that is the message table that has all the messages that are sent. The first field is the created at field, that is a timestamp. Each message has a channel. So here we have a reference to the channels table. Each message also has a sender. So we have a reference to the user table. This is very important because this will trigger some conditional logic on the front end. For example, if the logged in user is also the sender of the message, it will be displayed on the right, and so on. We have another column that is the actual message that is called text, that is a text type. And we also have a list or array of objects. It's called receivers. So let's take a look at this list of objects. So we have two fields. The first one is the user ID that is referred to the user table. And the second one is a Boolean value called red. So we are going to display this back to the sender if this specific user has read this message. Now that we know our database, let's take a look at our APIs. Here we have 8 API endpoints overall that is split into 2 API groups. The first one is specific for authentication, and the second one is specific for interacting with our application. So let's take a look at the authentication one. Here we have the 3 default authentication endpoints that you can find here under authentication, and we have login, sign up, and auth me. And my sign up process specifically has 2 steps. The first one, the user just has to provide an email. And the second step, the user adds the name, username, password, and photo to their account. So let's go ahead and run it to see how it goes. We're going to go through the sign up process. Let's create another user. I'm going to call him Nick. And then we get back an auth token. And this token you save on the front end side as a cookie or in local storage. And you're going to be passing this token every time you hit an authenticated API endpoint, which is something that we're going to do now. You can see that this patch user API is private, so we need to pass the token. So we're going to use this token that I pasted during the sign up. I don't actually need to do that because Xano makes our life easier every time we need to use a token here for testing. So we can also click here and get the user that we're going to generate a token for. So in this case, here is this Nick. So when I do this, I'm already creating a token for testing on the fly. So let's upload an image, username Nick, and password. We run. Let's check our table. So here we have our new user. Now that we have our new user, we're going to start hitting the login and auth.me endpoints in combination. The first one is to log in and receive an authentication token. The second one is to receive information about the user that's logged in, but this time we're going to use the front end to do it. Let's take a look. So I'm going to use here the email address of the user that I just created. Also the password that I defined, pass12345, login. And we see that we connected to the specific real-time channel that the user has. So we have this information about this user, as well as the user's profile picture. So this is coming from the auth.me. But we also see that there's nothing going on here on the screen because we need to start a new chat. If we click here, we see that we can start a direct message with one of these users. And we can also create a group conversation that we define a name and description, and also select the users that are going to be part of the group. But we're going to run this directly in the API endpoints that we built to create a new chat and a new message. The other four that we haven't talked about. So let's go ahead and create a new chat. If you run here, we have to provide an auth token. So we're going to use an auth token of this user. Remember that I said that name, description, and image are only relevant for group channels. So we're not going to use them for now. We're just going to provide the ID of the user that we are going to chat with. In this case, it's just like providing the user and creating start chat. So let's go ahead and run. Then we have a new channel that's type direct, and we have two participants, 21, that's the ID of this user, and 1 that is the user that we provided an input. So let's go ahead and copy this channel ID, because now we're going to send a message to this channel ID. And we're going to use the auth token of this user and going to say, hey, Louis, this is Nick. If we run, that's awesome. So this updates real time on the screen without the need to refresh the page. So let's send another message back. Say, hi, Nick. So now I just have to change the auth token to Louis and run. And there we go. Awesome. So now let me show you what these API endpoints do in a little more detail. So we started with new chat, and this API has only two steps in the function stack. The first one is basically dealing with image. So as we are using this create image metadata, and it requires a valid and public image to work, otherwise it's going to throw an error, I have to create a conditional that if we have an image here, it's empty, so false, that upload to storage and create the metadata so I can store it in the database, or just create an empty variable so I can store it in the table anyways. And then here I'm adding the record to create the channel. And I'm using here an expression that if I'm pushing more than one ID in the participants is going to be a group, otherwise it's going to be a direct. Then name and description whenever provided. The participant's ID is going to be primarily the ID of the person that is creating the channel, and also merge with the participants that I'm providing here in the input. And the group image is going to be the image underscore meta variable that is going to be either populated with the metadata or just blank. And then we have the send message endpoint, where the first step is to fetch information about the channel. The second one, we have a query of records that's counting all the messages of the user. So if the count is 0, it means that the user is new, and we have to tell the front end to run the logic accordingly. Then I have an empty array called receivers that's going to hold the list of objects that we're going to create for each message. Remember that I explained that I'm creating a list of objects of the user IDs and if they read the message or not. So here I'm pushing this newly created object to the end of this array. And here I have another conditional that if the number of messages from the user is 0, that means that the user is new. So I'm going to be sending the channel ID to the front end so it can load this channel ID specifically. Otherwise, I'm just notifying every user in the receiver's list just to make sure that the data is refreshed as soon as the message is received. And then I'm creating a new message in the table. And I am providing these values from the input. The sender ID it's coming from the token. And the receiver's list of objects is coming from this loop. And the last two API endpoints that I'm going to talk about is mark read and refresh data. So let's start with this mark read. So here I have to provide the user ID. So I'm providing mine here and channel ID. So what that does is that all the messages from this user of this channel are going to be marked red. So if we run, and then I see here the double check marks that are now blue because this message is now red. And the last one is a little more complex, that is called refresh data, because it has 3 different variables in the response. You also need to provide a channel ID and the user auth token. When we run, we see here that I have 9 items in the updates, 1 object in the current channel, and we have 12 elements in the contact list. And the response of this API request is what's actually powering everything here on our screen, except for this left navigation bar that is fetching data from the auth me. Everything else is using this data to be displayed here on our screen. So let me log out and log in with my user. That is going to be easier to understand. So here in the updates that we have these updates over here. So we have 9. The design is a little broken because it's split screen. But if we see here the current channel, we see that we have Nick here. The image is this image, and I have the participants. Here we have the message that we can see here in the screen. So this is the current channel, the updates, and here we have the contact list. We have 12 people, and these 12 people are over here. So the trick here is that every time I load my page, I join a specific real-time channel that is unique to my account. So whenever a message is sent and I am in the list of receivers, my real-time channel is going to receive a message that is going to trigger this API request. So it's very important to keep this extremely performant. For example, I am refreshing everything on my screen in 0.1 second. On top of that, I am making this API request from the browser, so to keep everything extremely fast and reliable. So now let's take a look how these API endpoints were built. Let's start with this mark read. It's important to remember that you have the link to this snippet here in the description of the video, so you can go ahead and install in your instance, and you have access to everything that I'm going over here in this video. If you have any questions, leave here in the comments below. So for this API endpoint specifically, the first step is to query all the records, try to fetch unread messages for my user and that channel. So then we have a precondition. So if there are no unread messages, please stop the execution right there. Otherwise, create an object with my user ID and read value as true in the Boolean. Then I'm going to loop through all the messages. So in the list of receivers, so what we're going to do is that we're going to remove my ID with the value false, and we're going to push a new one with the value true. Then I'm going to add the record with the new updated list of receivers. After that, I separate the senders of those messages in a unique list, and then I inform every unique sender that I have read those messages. And for last, we have the refresh data. And in this endpoint, the user provides the channel ID that's going to be used in the current channel section of our screen. We start by fetching the contact list and the channels that the user is in. To keep things simple for this tutorial, I am basically returning all the records from the user table as your contact lists. This is something that you need to adjust for your use case. You might want to have a table reference or even a separate contact list table, depending on what you're looking for. The next step, I create a data model. This is very interesting if you're dealing with new users because you want to keep the result consistent of your API, or else things might break on the front end. So in my case here, I'm creating a model that's going to be used in case the user is new. There are no channels that this user is in. So here I set the updates object array with some values that are empty, just some dummy data. And I have the same for current channel and contact lists. And the next conditional is for that. So in case the user has a channel that he or she's in, so that means that this channel is not empty. So go ahead and search for updates and search for more information about the current channel. Otherwise, just use the data in this model that I created and return it. And that's it what I have for our first video. In the second video, I'm going to show you how I can connect everything to the front end, and you're going to use Bubble as our example. So if you want to learn more about this video tutorial and about our tool in general, you can visit our awesome community. And for more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.